He kicked me out and threw $50 at me. I used it to win $10 million jackpot, and now he wants half. Hello, family. Welcome back. Please do well to subscribe, and let's know where you are watching the story from in the comment section. Rachel Miller stood in the middle of the living room, her hands trembling. She had no coat on, just an old sweatshirt and jeans. Her sneakers were damp from stepping outside earlier to grab the mail. The envelope she'd found was still on the counter, unopened. Mark Miller, her husband of 9 years, stood a few feet away, his face red and his voice loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "I'm done, Rachel," Mark's voice cracked with rage. "I've carried you for too long. I've been paying the bills, keeping this house, while you just sit here." Rachel stared at him in disbelief. "I sat here," she said, her voice shaky. "I quit my job to take care of your mother for 2 years, Mark. 2 years. I cooked, cleaned, bathed her when you wouldn't. I was here every single day, yeah, and now she's gone." He snapped, his eyes cold. "So what exactly are you doing here now? You're dead weight. I can't afford to keep you around." Rachel's throat tightened. "Keep me around? Is that what I was to you? A burden?" Mark turned away, pacing toward the window. He kept glancing at his phone on the counter, as if waiting for a message. "Look, you've had it easy for too long," he said flatly. "It's time you learned how to stand on your own. I'm not your bank, Rachel." Her stomach knotted. Something about the way he was acting didn't feel like just frustration. It felt rehearsed. She looked at the phone he kept checking. "Who's texting you?" she asked, her voice low. "Is that what this is really about?" Mark didn't answer. He picked up the phone and slid it into his pocket. "Don't change the subject." Rachel stepped forward. "Let me see it." "You're not touching my phone. Mark." Her voice cracked. "Let me see it." For a moment he stood still, his jaw tight. Then he laughed, a short, cruel sound. "Fine. You want to see?" He pulled the phone back out and tossed it toward her. She caught it. The screen was still lit, showing a message thread. Her hands shook as she read. "Jessica, can't wait to see you again tonight. I've missed you so much." Mark, "Soon, babe." "She's still here, but not for long." Rachel's vision blurred. She scrolled up, reading more messages. Photos, sweet names, plans they'd made behind her back. 6 months' worth of cheating laid out in her hands. When she finally looked up, Mark didn't even look guilty. "You've been with her," she whispered. "Yeah," he said, shrugging like it meant nothing. "She's not a nag. She's fun. She doesn't make me feel trapped." Rachel felt her knees weaken. "Trapped? You told me you loved me. That was before you turned into this miserable person, always tired, always complaining. Jessica makes me feel alive." The words hit her like punches. "You're ending our marriage for her?" "I'm ending it because I'm done." He walked over to the coat rack, grabbed her jacket and tossed it on the couch. "Get your stuff and go." She blinked at him. "You're kicking me out, right now, in the middle of the night?" "Why not?" "You've got family." "My family's in another state," she said, her voice breaking. "I have nowhere to go tonight." "Not my problem," he said coldly. The sound of the rain outside seemed louder now, matching the pounding in her chest. She stood frozen, not sure if she should beg him or scream. He walked into the bedroom and started pulling her clothes from the closet. One by one, he threw them onto the living room floor. Dresses, sweaters, jeans, all landing in a wet pile near the door as rain blew in from the open front entrance. "Mark, stop! You don't have to do this," she pleaded. "Oh, I do," he said, grabbing her shoes and tossing them onto the pile. "I'm not wasting another day on this farce." When the closet was empty, he went to the dresser, yanked open drawers, and dumped them into a duffel bag. He shoved the bag toward her and walked to the kitchen counter. She watched him open his wallet. He pulled out a single bill, a crumpled $50, and threw it at her feet. "There," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Here's something to start your new life. You're worth about that much." The bill landed in a small puddle by the doorway. Rachel stared at it. Her chest ached, but her eyes were dry now. She didn't know if it was shock or something deeper. The moment you realize the person you loved has turned into a stranger. She bent down, picked up the bill, and shoved it into her pocket. Without looking at him, she grabbed the duffel bag, slung it over her shoulder, and stepped out into the storm. The rain was icy against her face. Her sneakers sank into the water rushing along the curb. Behind her, the door slammed shut. She walked without a plan, her bag dragging across the wet pavement. Streetlights reflected in the puddles, blurring like watercolor through her tears. By the time she reached the corner, she was shivering. She turned around once, just in time to see the curtains in the living room shift. A shadow moved inside. She knew it was Mark, watching her leave, making sure she didn't come back. She didn't give him the satisfaction of stopping. She kept walking. It was almost midnight by the time she reached a gas station. The neon lights buzzed above her, reflecting off the wet ground. She stepped inside, grateful for the warmth. The cashier, a tired-looking man in his 40s, glanced at her soaked clothes. "You okay, miss?" Rachel managed a weak smile. "Yeah, just a long night." She bought a bottle of water and asked if there was a motel nearby. The man pointed across the street. "Budget Inn. Not fancy, but it's dry." She thanked him, crossed the street and stepped into the motel lobby. The smell of bleach and stale coffee hit her immediately. A young woman behind the desk looked up from her phone. "Room's $35 for the night," she said. Rachel hesitated, then pulled the crumpled $50 from her pocket. She handed it over, watching almost all of it disappear as the woman counted change back into her hand. Her room was small, with faded curtains and a bedspread patterned with strange flowers. She dropped her bag on the bed and sat down, staring at the remaining $15 in her palm. It wasn't much, but it was something. She thought about Mark. His smirk, the way he didn't flinch when she found out about Jessica. She thought about how easily he'd thrown her away like she was a piece of furniture he didn't need anymore. For a long time, she sat in silence, listening to the rain tap against the window. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But one thing was certain. She was never going back to that house, or to him. Not ever. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give future to children and women abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing to hitting the subscribe button and turning on your notification bell. Also, let us know in the comments where you are watching us from and how this story hit home for you. Morning crept in slow and grey. The rain had stopped, but the sky over Columbus looked heavy, like it might change its mind. Rachel woke on the rough motel sheets with her face stiff from dried tears. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the faded floral curtains and remembered everything, all at once, like a punch. She sat up and checked her phone. No new messages, no apologies from Mark, no, "Are you safe?" Not even a cruel follow-up, just silence. Her stomach growled. She opened her palm and looked at the money left from last night. $15. That was it. 15. She did the quick math people do when they don't want to think too hard. 10 could stretch if she skipped lunch, 5 could buy noodles, she could call her cousin in Kentucky and ask to crash on the couch, but pride rose up like a wall. Not yet. Not like this. She washed her face in the small bathroom sink and laughed once, sharp and bitter, at the cracked mirror. "You'll be okay," she told the woman staring back at her. "You don't have to be, but you will." The motel coffee was free. It tasted like hot cardboard, but it warmed her hands. She wrapped her jacket tight and crossed back to the gas station. The pavement was slick. Cars hissed past, throwing a fine mist that clung to her clothes. Inside, the same cashier from last night looked up. His name tag said ALVIN. "Rough weather," he said, tone gentle. "Yeah," she tried to sound casual. "You, sell cup noodles?" "Aisle 2. She grabbed 2 cups, a small pack of peanut butter crackers, and a cheap toothbrush. Standing in line, she saw the counter display of lottery tickets, bright colors, logos, numbers that meant nothing and everything. She never played. Her mother used to call it a tax on people who were hurting. But then a voice in her head, Mark's voice, said, "You're worth about that much." A thought burned through the fog. Make that $50 matter. "Powerball still open?" she asked. Alvin nodded, handing a play slip across. "Drawings Wednesday, jackpot's big this week." "How big?" He shrugged like it was all the same to him. 10 million. 10 million. The number landed heavy. Her heartbeat sped up, then slowed. 10 million was a country with its own weather. 10 million meant not having to ask for a place to sleep. 10 million meant never hearing dead weight again. She picked up the little pencil and stared at the play slip. Choose 5 numbers, then 1 Powerball. Her mind went blank. She could do random. But something tugged at her. She wrote 06 for June, the month she and Mark got married. 12 for the day. 19 because she was 19 when they met. 27 for the house number she'd just been thrown out of. Her hand hovered. 1 more. She thought of the years she'd spent taking care of his mother. 2. For the Powerball, she picked 14 because it felt like it, because the day had woken her with bruises no one could see. "Quick pick?" Alvin asked, ready to feed it into the machine. "No," she said quietly. "These are mine." He printed the ticket. The paper felt thin and flimsy, like it could float away. She put it in her wallet, in the slot where her wedding photo used to be. Back at the motel, she ate noodles with the plastic fork and tried to plan. She needed a job. She had a decent resume from before she quit to be a caregiver. Admin work, scheduling, customer service. She could do that. She could do anything if someone gave her a chance. She opened her laptop, old, slow, but still alive, and started sending applications. She wrote careful cover letters. She pressed send. She waited for the whoosh noise and imagined the emails flying somewhere better. By afternoon, the rain came back as a soft drizzle. She cleaned the room like she was auditioning for her old life. She folded the towel and made the bed. She lined up her shoes like she had more than one pair. Then she took the lottery ticket out again. It stared back with those simple printed numbers as plain as a grocery receipt. "This is stupid," she told herself. "Don't count on it." But hope slipped under the door anyway, quiet but stubborn. 2 days crawled by. She stretched her money by skipping breakfast, then lunch, then promising herself dinner would make up for it. She called her cousin, almost asked for help, then said she was just checking in. Her cousin talked about an upcoming baby shower and a new promotion and asked how things were with Mark. "Fine," Rachel lied, her throat tight. Wednesday night came like a dare. The motel TV was mounted up near the ceiling. The remote had duct tape on the battery cover. She flipped through channels until she found the local news. Laughter from the room next door bled through the thin wall. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. The air conditioner rattled even when it was off. The drawing started. Her hands went cold. She pulled the ticket from her wallet and flattened it on the bed. The anchor smiled too much for the situation. The music was a silly jingle that didn't understand real life. The first white ball rolled into view. 6, the announcer said. Announcer. Rachel stared. Her eyes skipped to the ticket. 6. Her chest rose. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, that's one." The second ball spun, clattered, stopped. 12. Her fingers tightened around the paper. 12. She didn't breathe. She didn't blink. She felt like if she moved, the universe would notice and take it back. The third ball. 19. She laughed, a shocked, scared sound, then covered her mouth like someone might shush her. 19. 3. 3 was impossible. 3 was how people told stories on the internet. 3 didn't happen to Rachel Miller in a motel room that smelled like bleach. 27. She stood up without meaning to. The bed squeaked. 27. The number looked different now, like it had a secret. Her knees felt wrong, like they might not work. She grabbed the back of the chair to steady herself. 2. She whispered it along with the voice, her lips moving before the sound came from the TV. 02. 5 for 5 for Ray. Her ears rang. The room blurred. She had to make herself look at the red Powerball number. The camera zoomed in. The ball spun and jittered like it was nervous too. 14. She closed her eyes. She opened them again. The screen still said 14. Silence flooded her head. No jingle, no baby crying next door, no AC rattle. Just the feeling of a floor falling away and a whole new world underneath. She checked the ticket again, tracing each number with her finger like a child sounding out a word. 06-12-19-27-02 and 14. She checked the screen. She checked the ticket. She pinched her arm. She slapped her cheek, not hard, just enough to feel alive. Then she laughed, wild and breathless. Then she started to cry. She sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. The ticket shook in her hands. 10 million. After taxes, it would be less. She knew that much. But it would still be more money than she had ever seen. More than her whole family had ever seen at once. She thought of her mother's phrase, a tax on the hurting, and felt something warm and fierce rise up. Not tonight, she whispered. Not me. She needed to be smart. She needed proof she wasn't dreaming. She grabbed her phone and searched Ohio lottery claim process. The page loaded slow. She tapped through, reading with careful eyes. Sign the back of the ticket. Don't share photos online. Secure it somewhere safe. Consider a lawyer and a financial advisor before claiming. She'd never had reason to think about a financial advisor, but the words looked friendly now, like a promise. She found a pen and signed the back. Her handwriting shook so badly it looked like someone else's name. She slid the ticket into an envelope, then into a Ziploc bag, then into another envelope. It felt ridiculous, like wrapping a gold bar in napkins. She tucked it into her bra, because there was nowhere safer in that moment, then pulled her sweatshirt on over it. The phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Rachel, it's Darren from the office. Heard about you and Mark. You okay? She stared at it, surprised by kindness from a direction she hadn't expected. Darren had been her supervisor at her last job before she quit to care for Mark's mother. He was strict but fair. So many nights he'd sent her home early when she looked exhausted. I'm figuring it out, she typed back. Thanks for checking. If you need a reference or anything, I got you, he replied. She swallowed. The generosity made her eyes sting again. Thank you. Really. She didn't tell him about the ticket. Not him. Not anyone. She put her phone on airplane mode, just in case crazy thoughts started whispering about photos and posts and proof. She barely slept. Every hour, she woke to touch the envelope, to check the door, to look at the clock. Morning came harsh and bright, like it was gossiping about her. At 9 a.m., she walked to a nearby bank and rented a small safe deposit box. The clerk asked 0 questions beyond the form. She slipped the envelope inside, shut the little metal door, and exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. In the lobby, her legs went loose with relief. She sat on a bench and let the new reality seep in without drowning her. How do you change your whole life without letting it change you? She didn't know. She only knew what she didn't want. She didn't want Mark's voice in her head anymore. She didn't want fear of rent or groceries or someone else's approval. She didn't want to become hard. She wanted to be the version of herself she remembered, the one who baked for neighbors and drove a sick friend to the clinic and sang off-key on purpose to make people laugh. The first call she made was to a law office she found online with good reviews. The CE receptionist's voice was calm, like she carried a bucket of water into people's fires every day. I need advice on claiming a lottery prize, Rachel said, trying to sound like someone who said sentences like that all the time. Of course, the woman said. We can schedule a consultation for this afternoon. They met at 3 p.m. in a tidy office that smelled like paper and lemon cleaner. Attorney Linda Carter had warm eyes and a crisp blazer. She listened without interrupting as Rachel told the story, from the rain to the numbers to the envelope in the box. "When did your husband ask you to leave?" Linda asked, pen poised. "Monday night," Rachel said. "He threw my clothes out, gave me $50. And the ticket. Tuesday morning." Linda nodded, a tiny, satisfied motion. "So you were separated before the purchase. Good, that matters." Relief rippled through Rachel, then guilt. "Is it wrong that I feel glad it happened this way?" "It's not wrong to be relieved that a bad situation won't cost you again," Linda said. "We'll handle the claim carefully. You can choose to remain anonymous through a trust. We'll open a new P.O. box, new phone. No social posts, no new car for a while. Move quietly. Understand?" "Yes," Rachel said. The word felt like a vow. They went through numbers, taxes, lump sum versus annuity, risks, charity plans. Rachel tried to keep up, nodding, asking questions, writing things down like a student who wanted an A in survival. At the end, Linda leaned forward. "One more thing. I need you to think about safety. Money brings out people you didn't know you knew." Rachel understood exactly what that meant. She saw Mark's face in her mind, the little twist his mouth did when he thought he was winning. The idea of him touching even $1 made something cold and bright ignite in her chest. "I won't tell him," she said. "I won't tell anyone." "Good," Linda said, standing. "We'll file the claim Friday. I'll be with you." On her way back to the motel, the sky had finally opened into blue. Puddles shone like coins. Rachel stopped at a diner with a red neon sign and a window full of pies. She slid into a booth and ordered a cheeseburger, fries, and an iced tea big enough to swim in. For the first time in days, she tasted food. She ate slowly, grateful for grease and salt and the ordinary miracle of a hot meal. Her phone buzzed again, a number she knew by heart. Mark. Her stomach turned. She let it ring, watched the screen go dark, set the phone face down. It buzzed again, then again. A voicemail popped up. She didn't listen. When she got back to the motel, there was a note slid under her door. Soft paper, fast handwriting. "Rach, I heard something. Call me. Tasha." Tasha was a mutual friend. She worked at the salon where Rachel used to get her hair trimmed, when things were normal. She was kind, but kind traveled. Rachel stared at the note, her throat tight. Heard what? Heard that Rachel was out? Heard that Mark had thrown her in the rain? Or, and this thought ran icy, had someone already whispered about the numbers? She locked the door and put the chain on. She sat on the bed and pulled the envelope from the bank out of her mind like tucking a child into a safe room. "Breathe," she told herself. She inhaled to 4, held, exhaled to 6. Again, again. Her hands stopped shaking. She opened her laptop and made a list. It wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. File claim with Linda on Friday. Open new checking account at a different bank. Get a P.O. box. Buy a cheap second-hand phone with a new number. Look at apartments. Nothing flashy. Donate to the women's shelter that kept coming up in her Google searches. Not yet, but soon. Write a letter to herself about who she is and who she won't become. She set the pen down and smiled, small but real. Then, because she needed to feel the truth of it, she whispered the number out loud like a prayer and a dare. 10 million. The door rapped twice. Not a knock. A rap. Sharp. Familiar rhythm. Rachel froze. Her heart sprinted to her throat. She stood, stepped close, and looked through the peephole. All she saw was a dark shape and the cheap hallway carpet. A voice came, smooth and practiced, like the man wearing it had rehearsed this line in the mirror. "Rachel," it called. "Open up. We need to talk." She knew that voice. She would know it in a crowd, in a storm, in a nightmare. Mark. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. The ticket might be in a bank box downtown, but every part of her felt like a vault. He knocked again, louder this time. I know you're in there. Outside, the sky went bright, like the sun had chosen a side. Inside, Rachel stood still, every nerve lit. The $50 he'd thrown at her had turned into a different life, and now the man who tossed it like trash wanted something back. She put her hand flat against the door, not to open it, but to brace it. And herself. Not today, she whispered. Not ever again. Rachel didn't open the motel door. She stood there with her palm flat against the wood, breathing slow. Mark's voice slid under the gap like smoke. Rach, come on, it's me. She said nothing. Her pulse slowed. When he knocked again, she stepped back, picked up her phone, and hit record. She held it at her side, screen dark, sound on. I know you're in there, he said. We should talk. We've both said things. Don't be dramatic. Silence. She pictured his face on the other side, the fake soft smile, the pinched eyes. After a full minute, his tone changed. Fine, don't answer, but we're not done. His footsteps moved away. She kept recording until she heard the exit door slam. Only then did she exhale. She replayed 10 seconds to be sure his voice was clear, saved the file, and texted it to herself and to her attorney, Linda, with a single line. He came to my door. I didn't open. Linda replied fast. Good. Don't engage. We move Friday. Friday came with a sky so blue it looked painted. Rachel met Linda downtown at the law office. Her hair was pulled back. Her hands were steady. They signed papers and set up a trust with a calm name that meant nothing to anyone. Sunstone Trust. The claims office processed her paperwork. No photo, no giant check, just signatures, tax forms, and rules. Remember, Linda said as they stepped into the hallway. You're a ghost for a while. New number, new P.O. box, no social media. Don't tell anyone who doesn't need to know. I won't, Rachel said. She bought a basic phone with a prepaid plan and gave the number only to Linda and the bank. She moved out of the motel into a small, clean one-bedroom on the edge of town. The building was brick and quiet, with a laundry room that smelled like soap and a parking lot lined with maples. She paid 6 months' rent up front through the trust so her name wouldn't show. She kept her old phone to harvest emails for job leads and nothing else. For the first week, she walked everywhere or took the bus. On day 8, Linda cleared her to buy a used car in cash, a simple grey sedan with a few scratches and a steady engine. No one looked twice at it. She liked that. She cooked basic meals. She slept. She took long showers and cried in the steam until her face felt calm. She sent a small anonymous donation to the women's shelter she'd bookmarked. Then another. Then she signed up to volunteer, using only her first name. On a Saturday, she stood in the shelter's kitchen, chopping onions with a group of women who moved like they'd done this together 100 times. A radio played low. A little girl at a corner table coloured a horse purple and gave it a crown. You okay, Rachel? A volunteer named Maya asked, bumping her shoulder gently. Yeah, Rachel said. I am. And she was. Not perfect, not fixed, but okay in a way that felt real. Good luck never arrives alone. It brings noise. It brings shadows. It brings the smell of smoke even when you can't see flames. Late one afternoon, her phone, her new one, buzzed. Linda. We may have a leak, Linda said, voice steady. Rachel gripped the countertop. How? I don't know yet. A local TV station ran a 30-second teaser. Mystery Sunstone Trust claims lottery jackpot. Sources say winner stayed at a Budget Inn 2 nights before the draw. They didn't name you, but it's sloppy, and sloppy is how things spread. Rachel's mouth went dry. Budget Inn, she repeated. The motel. Yeah. There were only a handful of people who could know that detail. The motel clerk, a housekeeper, the cashier at the gas station who'd sold her the ticket. Or someone who knew someone. Gossip travelled faster than any car. What do I do? Rachel asked. You do nothing different, Linda said. Stay low. Don't confirm anything. If anyone asks, You tell them you don't discuss rumors. And Rachel, if Mark calls, do not pick up. I won't. She hung up and stood in her quiet kitchen, heart thudding. She'd done everything right, and still the world pressed in. That night she pulled into her parking lot and froze. A black SUV idled at the curb. The driver's window rolled down. Mark leaned across the seat and smiled like they were old friends bumping into each other at the grocery store. Hey, Rach. Her first instinct was to run. Her second was to stand tall. She chose the second. She put the car in park and stepped out, locking it with a beep. What do you want? She said, keeping her voice even. He got out too. New suit, too shiny. Shoes that looked expensive and wrong on him. He spread his hands like a magician about to do a trick. I just want to talk, he said. We had a rough patch. Emotions, you know. Throwing me out in a storm was not a rough patch, she said. It was abuse. He winced, quick and small, then smoothed it over. Come on, don't use words like that. You know I was under stress. Mum had just passed. I said things I didn't mean. You told me I was dead weight. You shoved $50 at me like I was trash. He laughed, sharp, too loud. $50? That's dramatic. I gave you cash to get through the night. Anyway, it worked out great for you, didn't it? She went still. He watched her face. He was fishing. He had a knife in his smile. What are you talking about? She asked. He lifted his chin toward the building. Nice place, new car. Sunstone Trust? Cute name. You never were good at keeping secrets. Her stomach dropped, then steadied. He didn't know for sure. He wanted her to confirm it. She didn't blink. I don't know what you're trying to pull, she said. But we're done, Mark. You made that choice. He stepped closer. She fought the urge to step back. Look, he said, softening his voice like he was reading lines. I've had time to think. Jessica. She wasn't what I thought. She used me. I messed up. But we're married, Rach. We've built a life. And if, hypothetically, something good came your way, that's ours. That's how the law works. Marital property, community property, whatever they call it, half and half. She almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so naked. He had done zero homework beyond buzzwords. We were separated before the drawing, she said. Before I bought anything, you told me to leave. You made it formal with a text. You threw me out. He blinked. She could see the calculation behind his eyes. He hadn't thought she'd say it so clean. So you admit? I admit nothing, she said. I admit you're not getting a cent from me. His face changed. The nice mask slipped. The man who'd thrown her into the rain stepped forward. You think you can cut me out? He hissed. After everything I did for you, I paid the mortgage. I paid the bills. I fed you. You cheated on me, she said. For 6 months. You know how I found out? Your phone lit up on the counter. Soon, babe. She's still here, but not for long. That's what you wrote. You made a plan to replace me while I was bathing your mother. He flinched. Then he smiled again, fake and full of teeth. You're upset, I get it. But this is bigger than feelings. My lawyer will reach out. He slid a white business card into her palm. She didn't look at it. Her heart beat slow and heavy now. Calm. I have a lawyer too, she said. He glanced at her car, at the building, at her hands. He wanted to see fear. He didn't. You'll regret this, he said, dropping the smile. I'll see you in court. He got back in the SUV and pulled away too fast, tires chirping. She stood there until his taillights disappeared. Then she walked upstairs, shut her door, locked it, and leaned her forehead against the wood. Her hands finally shook. She let them. She set the white card on the counter. Clayton and Hurst, attorneys at law, embossed in gold like the fake kind of authority. She took a photo and texted it to Linda with a short message. He found me. He says he'll sue. Linda called at once. Are you safe? Yes. Good. Listen to me. He's bluffing on the law, but he'll make noise. He'll say words like marital, community, entitlement. Ohio is equitable distribution, not community property, and we have the separation date, his threat texts, and proof of infidelity. You also have that recording from the motel. We'll be ready. I don't want him near me, Rachel said, voice small now that it was safe to be. We'll file a protection order if he escalates, Linda said. For now, document everything, no contact. If he shows up again, call the police, then me. Okay? And Rachel? Yeah? I know this is scary, but the facts are on your side. She slept badly. Dreams tangled with old fights and new money and doors that wouldn't lock. In the morning, she went to the shelter kitchen and kept her hands busy. She cut peppers. She learned how Maya liked the onions diced. She breathed in the smell of garlic and safety. At lunch, her old phone buzzed on the counter where she used it only for email. Notifications stacked up like bricks. She never checked social media anymore, but a friend request flashed with a familiar face. Tasha from the salon. A minute later, a message arrived on the old number. Girl, call me. Like yesterday. She stepped into the hallway and dialed. Tasha picked up on the first ring. Finally, Tasha said. I was about to drive around Columbus honking. What's going on? Rachel asked, keeping her voice neutral. You know I don't gossip, Tasha said, which meant she absolutely did, but for good reasons. But I heard something and you need to hear it too. Mark was at Mitch's bar last night running his mouth, telling anyone with ears that you owe him half of some jackpot. He said you stiffed him. He was sloppy drunk, Rach. Said he was getting what's his if he had to drag you in by your hair. I told him to shut up, loud. But then Jessica's cousin, remember Lacey? She said he knew about, the numbers, day after it happened. Rachel sat down on a metal chair in the hallway, mind racing. How would he know? Alvin from the gas station drinks there, Tasha said. He ran his mouth about a sad woman in a motel who bought the winning ticket. Someone told someone who told Mark. Rach, I'm sorry. People are messy. But he knew within a day. Rachel felt the twist settle into place. Hot anger flared, then cooled into something harder. Thanks for telling me, she said. And Tasha? Don't say a word to anyone else. Please. I got you, Tasha said. You know I do. She hung up, walked back to the kitchen, and washed her hands like she could scrub the bar air off the words. That night, she told Linda everything. The attorney listened, then said calmly, Good. That's exactly the timeline I wanted. It proves his intent. If he files, we counter with everything. He filed. A week later, a process server knocked at her door at noon. Rachel opened it because Linda had told her to expect it. The woman handed over a manila envelope and was gone in under a minute. Inside, complaint for declaratory judgment and equitable distribution. Words like marital share, unjust enrichment, constructive trust splashed across the pages like fake blood. Attached were printouts of social media posts saying nothing but tagged with her old neighborhood. A grainy photo of her car in the lot. A copy of a text he'd sent her months ago about paying the electric bill with a note scrawled at the bottom. Proof I supported her. Rachel's throat tightened, but not from fear, from fury. She drove straight to Linda's office. They spread the papers across a long table. He's throwing spaghetti at the wall, Linda said, tapping a fingernail on the complaint. We'll answer each point, then we file our own stack. Evidence of the separation, the motel recording, screenshots of the affair messages. We add his bar threat through Tasha's sworn statement. We include the $50 because the judge will understand the symbolism even if it's not technically legal argument. Do judges care about symbolism? Rachel asked. They care about facts, Linda said. But judges are human, and humans understand what a man meant when he threw a woman into the rain with a crumpled bill and a sneer. Rachel nodded. She felt tired to the bone, but also oddly clear. She signed where Linda placed tabs. She initialed. She dated. She handed over a printed timeline she'd typed the night before with dates, times, and messages. Linda smiled at that. You're my favorite kind of client, she said. Organized. Days turned to a rhythm of depositions and forms and quiet dinners alone. Rachel found herself stronger than she expected. She woke, made coffee, prayed in her own simple way, help me stay decent, help me stay brave, and then did the next thing. When fear came at 3 a.m., she wrote it down on a yellow pad and left it there. One afternoon, as she left the shelter, her phone vibrated with a new voicemail. She almost ignored it, then listened. "Rachel," Mark said, voice smooth again. "I know your lawyer is filling your head, but this doesn't have to be ugly. We could present a united front. We could settle. Think what people will say when they hear how cold you've been. You're not that person. Meet me at Mitch's. 6 o'clock. Be reasonable." She pressed delete. She took a slow breath of summer air and kept walking. The first court date landed on a Monday. The courthouse in downtown Columbus looked like every courthouse in every movie. Tall steps, heavy doors, flags. Rachel wore a simple navy dress and low heels. Linda met her at the entrance with a firm hug. "You ready?" Linda asked. "As I'll ever be," Rachel said. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Mark waited with his lawyer. He wore that same sharp suit. Jessica wasn't with him. He watched Rachel like she was prey, and he was considering the wind. "Ms. Miller," his lawyer said with a polite nod that didn't reach his eyes. "Soon to be not Miller," Rachel said under her breath. They filed in. The judge took the bench. People shuffled papers. Names were called. Mark's lawyer rose first, voice silky, telling a story about partnership and sacrifice, and a man who supported his wife while she pursued personal interests. When he said personal interests, he made it sound like lazy afternoons and spa days. Rachel's jaw tightened. Linda squeezed her wrist once, a quiet signal. "I know." Then it was Linda's turn. She spoke clean and cold. She laid out dates. She laid out texts. She laid out the separation and the motel and the $50. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She handed up copies. She sat down. Rachel felt something settle in her chest. Not triumph, not yet, but a sense that truth had finally been invited into the room. Mark stared at her across the aisle. He smiled, small, the kind that says, "I've gotten away with worse." He mouthed, half, like a promise and a threat. Rachel looked right back at him, eyes steady, and mouthed one word of her own. "Number part 2, loading, stay tuned. You can't afford to miss the next plot reveal."